Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. We've got an Atlantic double bill today. First up, the head boss, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, host of Washington Week on PBS, and author of the biggest story in quite a while. The Trump team accidentally texted me its war plans. It's Jeffrey Goldberg. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I guess my first note here on the outline is holy fuck. I want to know, just talk us through, you do this a little bit in the story, but where were you when the signal message from Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, came through? And walk me through how you kind of process what was happening as he invited the entire national security team onto the group checks with you.
Yeah. Quite randomly, I was in Salzburg, Austria. Let's put that aside.
Okay.
60th anniversary of The Sound of Music. That's all I'll say. But I was in Salzburg. He invited me in to chat with him. I've met him I think twice in my life, not recently, probably like a couple of years ago, but didn't strike me as a crazy thing. He's the National Security Advisor. I'm the editor of a magazine. I write about national security. We probably agree on a lot of stuff too. Well, that's the issue. Marco too, right? I assume that things that come over the transom are fake, but there's no harm in saying to Mike Waltz, yeah, sure, I accept your message request and I'll find out if it's the real Mike Waltz or not. That happens. A couple of days later, I am added to the Signal chat Houthi PC small group with a bunch of names, most of which are, spelled out. Some are not, some are just initials, but, including the CIA director, the Secretary of Defense, et cetera. And then I'm 100% convinced it's a fake.
Right.
100%. Because that doesn't happen. Somebody's setting me up.
Well, couldn't you just check to see if it was Mike Waltz's phone number? Don't you have his phone?
No, I don't. I'm not good. No, I don't want to press any buttons.
Right. You don't want to accidentally leave the chat.
No. I don't. Well, no, I don't want to. I assume that this is a foreign state actor or a non-state actor trying to, and it's obviously more subtle than this is UPS. You have to give us your social security number or else we're not going to give you your packet. This is some sophisticated thing going on. So I just and Signal in the way it's designed, you can't very easily from my limited skills here, very easily see what's going on. Or if the person in the group is not in your phone book, right. And, then you can't see who it is. So anyway, I just thought of some weird thing. I get a lot of weird things over the transom, as do you, every day. It's like, all right, we're, whatever, moving on. And then over the next couple of days, it gets very, very strange. First, with a high degree of, verisimilitude, there's a discussion about attacking Yemen and whether they should attack Yemen this weekend. This is already late in the week. And I'm like, well, some AI is very clever at mimicking the policy positions or the ideological proclivities of J.D. Vance. That's interesting. Right. And then Saturday,
JD was the one that was against in the text chain.
JD was the one who articulated. And by the way, I find this fascinating, and this is the stuff that interests me the most. I find it fascinating that JD Vance is in the chat, not only saying that he disagrees with the president, but that he doesn't think the president understands the ramifications of the policy.
I thought
that's interesting. And
Trump doesn't understand it. He says that in a chain with 18 people and the editor.
Well, he says it in a chain, and this is where it's kind of bold, right? He says it in a chain that includes half the cabinet.
Right.
I'm exaggerating, but only slightly. Maybe 30% of the cabinet is including, by the way, the senior most cabinet departments, the Secretaries of State, right. Defense, Treasury, are in there. And he's like, I don't think the president really gets what's going on here. And he's making strong arguments that this is just, we're just doing Europe another favor and screw the Europeans. And it's interesting, a conversation that's ostensibly about whether we start dropping serious bombs on the Houthis becomes more animated on the question of how bad the Europeans are. Really bad or super bad. and that's where it goes. So that's the Friday, but on Saturday, as you know,
Higgs has said he loathes our Europeans.
And they did it all caps. Pathetic. Europeans are pathetic, all caps, whatever. I mean, they're all like sort of mimicking each other and mimicking the boss in that sense. Saturday is when it becomes obviously totally bizarre, and I realized that I'm in something that. As much as I enjoy national security investigative reporting, I don't need strike plans 2 hours before a launch. That should not be coming into my phone. I mean, I take this stuff very, very seriously, and I take the responsibility not to get Americans killed very, very seriously. And I'm sitting in a Safeway parking lot, and my phone contains now information that really 4 or 5 humans should know, right? I mean,
detailed plans, who they're going to kill, when, what weapons.
The when and the where are what's interesting, and the weapons packages. Because what I deduced from this is that these are not uncrewed aircraft drones being used, or missiles, standoff missile platforms that they're talking about. All I'm comfortable saying is that they're talking about crewed aircraft being used in the coming hours to attack sites that I have to assume are protected by anti-aircraft batteries and other defensive weapons systems that I don't know, Right. But it's like the thought is, if this is real, why the hell do I have this? And I'm serious. Like, I know it goes against it might go against people's perception of what a reporter wants to know. I want to know the strategy. I want to know the arguments. I want to know our foreign policy posture. I want to know after action. I want to know if it worked or not, if they killed the right people or if they killed civilians by mistake. I want to know how bad I don't want to know what planes are flying when. It's not information I should have. Sorry, I get very exercised about this because the White House is saying there is no classified information. Classification is a technical term, so put that aside. But the White House is now saying there's nothing in there that was sensitive, and it's like,
let's get to that.
Boys, what are you talking about here?
Here is what the White House press secretary said just about an hour ago. Jeffrey Goldberg is well known for his sensationalist spin. Here are the facts about his latest story. No war plans were discussed. No classified material was sent to the thread. The White House counsel's office has provided guidance on a number of different platforms Trump's top officials can communicate on as safely and efficiently as possible. So what do you make of that? No classified material and no war plans, the White House says.
Well, I mean, war plans are I've detailed I've detailed without including particulars or technical issues what was included. It was a timeline of coming attacks, the weapon systems used in these attacks, some very specific targeting information, who they are trying to kill. Okay, let me just state that. Who they are trying to kill in the next 2 hours. That sounds like an attack plan. That sounds like a war plan. That sounds like this is what we're going to do, and we haven't done it yet. And literally, they are talking, and I agree with this kind of language, Godspeed to our men in the, they understand that they're about to send Americans into harm's way in order to achieve this national security goal. Classification is a very interesting subject. I can't get into it. I don't.
Well, there's
one national defense information. There's classification. Look, it's obviously
there's a
material.
CIA operative named on the thread, right? So I mean,
and I withheld her name from this. They named somebody who's an active CIA officer in this thread, which is on Signal, again, a commercial app in which I'm watching. And I withheld it. I didn't put it in the story because she's undercover. But I mean, the CIA director put it into the chat.
But so that's clearly classified information, though. Like covert CIA.
Look, by any standard of imagination, I mean, we're talking about, again, these are technical terms, and there's many, many different layers and complexities. And I'm not a national security lawyer, But look, I've been doing this for more than 30 years. I know what sensitive technical information looks like. Okay.
So let's go to that national security lawyer question then, because I think, look, if the White House now the Secretary of Defense and the White House press secretary have said you're lying, have said there are no war plans there, have said there's no classified information. So the obvious question is, shouldn't you now demonstrate it? Shouldn't you publish the text?
No, because they're wrong. They're wrong.
But how can you prove that you're wrong? Maybe should you provide them to the House and Senate Special Committees on Intelligence? Maybe. I don't know.
Wow. Well, you want to become my lawyer?
I'm throwing this out there, Jeff. I don't know. I mean, look.
I feel like no. I mean, I obviously. Let me just put it this way: my colleagues and I, and the advice and the people who are giving us advice on this have some interesting conversations to have about this.
Yeah.
But just because they're irresponsible with material doesn't mean that I'm going to be irresponsible with this material. And you know what? I could, whatever. I mean, you've had a long history, as I have, with dealing with them. And at moments like this, when they're under pressure because they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar or whatever, they will just literally say anything to get out of the moment, to get out of the jam. And that's okay. I get it. I get the defensive reaction. And but here's the thing. My obligation, I feel, is to the idea that we take national security information seriously. And maybe in the coming days, I'll be able to let you know that, okay, I have a plan to have this material vetted publicly. But I'm not going to say that now, because there's a lot of conversations that have to happen about that.
Makes sense.
All of my inclinations, as you can tell, including withholding the name of the CIA undercover officer, all of my inclinations are. I have a pretty clear standards in my own behavior of what I consider information that I consider to be in the public interest, even if it's technically classified or not, information that's in the public interest and information that's not in the public interest. And I'm just going to I'm sticking to my principles here.
Understood. To this point, though, about the unauthorized release, Tulsi, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, just a couple of weeks ago, posted this, that any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law and will be treated as such. I mean, it seems like this was an unauthorized
I don't know.
release, right? You're not a lawyer, but what do you make of that?
I mean, it's not it's unauthorized release might not be technically the correct term for mistakenly inviting the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic into your signal chat. I don't know what covered.
I mean, it seems like they have standards. Usually, with classified information, you have a SCIF, you have devices that you're supposed to use this stuff on. I mean, if you could, even if you were using something that could plausibly invite Jeff Goldberg, it seems like an unauthorized leak.
Right. Although I have seen in some corners of the conversation pro-Trump people saying that, I'm sure he was invited on purpose in order to show that J.D. Vance was strong against Europe. And it's like,
this is 2028.
That's one way. That's one way to show that. The other way is to just look on YouTube at his speech at the Munich Security Conference, in which he was deeply critical of Europe. I mean, there's some 3D chess kind of thinking going on around this, which I find obviously amusing. Look, here's the thing. Obviously, it's a very relatable screw up. Right. On what we've all sent text to the wrong people. And there is something to be said for a White House just saying, oh, yeah, looks like we screwed that up. We are going to learn our lesson here and really police up the way we use commercial end-to-end encrypted apps for security communications. I mean, they could just say, yeah, well, that was a doozy. We're not going to do that again. Sorry. And then move on. I mean, that's one thing to do.
Yeah. Two really quick things. I'll let you go. I want to blow your mind with one way to look at this, because I was watching in a different interview. You said, what if they accidentally put a Houthi on there? And at some level, that sounds ridiculous until you think about it like this. I mean, the Secretary of Defense called you a deceitful and highly discredited journalist. The president's attacked you. I mean, at some level, they kind of did put an adversary on our attack plan. I mean, they call
not
you
a
the
Houthi.
enemy of the people. Like, you are an adversary.
Yeah, but I don't like the Houthis as much as they don't like the Houthis. Yeah, look, I mean, here's the thing: they're using an unclassified telecommunication. They're using an unclassified messaging system to share very sensitive information. They mistakenly invited the editor of the Atlantic onto the thing. Just say, I guess we screwed up. Trying to learn from it. We'll do better next time. I'm all for that. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, most of us don't invite people to Houthi PC small group. We just sort of invite them to a party that they shouldn't have been to. But I get that. But just deal with the reality of it, especially since they've taken such strong positions on classification and on the use of unauthorized servers as a famous example.
Yeah.
But there's this is the part that I just don't understand. Just deal with it. Just say this is what happened.
Jeff.
What?
They're liars, and they've had a lot of success lying, and so that's why they're lying, I think. And
all right, I accept your expert. I accept your expert judgment.
All right. So here's the last thing I'm just dying to know, just on a human level. So you're sitting there in the Safeway, looking to see if the bombing.
My car. Lock the doors.
You want to see if there's bombing that is actually real. Like, had you told other people? Like, had you told your wife? Like, are you carrying this alone? Like, what is?
No, I'm not carrying this alone. I have colleagues and trusted colleagues and advisors who I said, "There's this weird thing going." Look, we were all, including my colleague Shane Harris, who's one of the great intelligence reporters, one of the great intel community reporters. And we were both convinced that this was an elaborate deception campaign, elaborate disinformation campaign. And the reason we thought that is because because it's too improbable. It's too improbable and by the way, it's too improbable given my coverage history of these guys, the Suckers and Losers piece and other things. It's how did I get into this group? So therefore, since it made no sense, it had to be a deception campaign.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess the people are saying that it was Jameson Greer, who's a U.S. trade rep, who's JG. But then again, like, why is Mike Waltz? Like, are you guys on initial relationship? JG and W.
These are questions for Mike Waltz.
Okay,
and
we'll try to get him on the pod.
I look forward to that podcast interview.
All right. Thank you so much. Jeff Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. What a week. What a 2 weeks for you, I guess. It was March 11th, your first put on there. Appreciate you coming on the pod this morning.